all the committee de absuelto remarks are but a response to his cockpit of chismis remarks. As in previous committee hearings, as chairman, he monopolized the flow of the proceedings by conducting monologue for hours, thereby not giving an adequate opportunity for the other senators to ask questions. These are the unparliamentary acts. Normally, I am not the whining type and could have easily let these things pass, so I could focus on the more important issues at hand. But in the spirit of justice and fairness, at the appropriate time, I'd be filing my own ethics case against Senator Gordon for his unparliamentary and unethical acts as senator and chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee. I will also expose his corrupt acts as chairman of the Philippine Red Cross. But I digress. I digress. To my defense, let me stress the importance of statements made on record. Senate rules or the rules of Parliament only cover words said or actions done while in session or the hearing is ongoing. Conversations while a session or hearing is suspended or adjourned are not covered. Statements made in private or in the senator's lounge are definitely not covered. Kunyari, nagkakwentuhan yung dalawang senador dito, is that covered? No. So, maliwanag ang ating rules. Ngayon, let me recall, and statements made in the media are not covered. Let me recall how then Senator Alan Cayetano called former President and then Senator Noynoy Aquino as abnormal, and how the other senators publicly maligned former Senate President Manny Villar prior to and during the 2010 elections. I was also once called a mosquito by the late Senator Joker Arroyo. Lastly, we clearly remember how the late Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago called a lot of senators or resource persons fungus face or imbeciles. Yet nobody dared to call her out. Previous instances cited where Senators Pacquiao, Ejercito, and Zubiri were claimed to have been offended were attributed to statements made in the media, and they only felt alluded to. They were never individually named. We are all political figures here. We are in the business of influencing or being influenced by public opinion, to forge public policy or to promote public interest. Our primary weapons are words. The unwritten rule is, if you can give it, then you should be able to take it. Nakita nyo doon sa video, ilang insulto ang binigay sa akin, then ako naman, I responded through words. And since we are in a democracy, we can be liberal in our use of words to pursue our political message. But the line dividing what can or cannot be said or done while in Parliament or even in media is quite clear to me. Even in this era of kabastusan at pagmumura under the Duterte administration, for as long as I'm not cursing or using cuss words and I'm not physically hurting anybody, then I am not crossing that line. I have never crossed that line. Now, even assuming I said committee de absuelto while the hearing was ongoing, the terms lawyering o nag-aabogado and committee de absuelto are not offensive language by any standard. My standard for offensive language is this: if I say a word or phrase to a person and that person would instantly slap or punch me or get mad at me, then that is clearly an offensive word or offensive language. Like the F word or Duterte's favorite PI, for example. But the term lawyering could either mean a noble profession or a way of defending someone. It is by no means an intrinsically offensive or bad word. It may have bruised the ego of Senator Gordon, but in the video, apparently, it did not. But saying that word, no matter how you spin it, is not unparliamentary. As to the term committee, de absuelto, just try telling that to 1,000 people and see if they'd be instantly offended by it. I'd even be surprised if they would react at all, precisely because it is not an offensive language per se. Let me cite an example to highlight the difference between being offended and an offensive language. During a heated debate, then Senator Enrile said to then Senator Alan Cayetano, and I quote, yung kahoy na pinagawa sa bahay nyo, saan galing yun? Unquote. Talagang nakaka-offend, talagang masakit yung pagkasumbat na yon, yet not a single word used in that sentence is offensive language. Still, then Senator Cayetano just sucked it all up because he knows that then Senator Enrile already lost the debate when Enrile resorted to ad hominem attacks. No ethics case. Let me now bring up the controversial na ano ka lang remarks of the majority leader which were made during the hearing of the Commission on Appointments addressed to then Secretary Judy Taguiwalo. I recall the outrage of the various women's groups then, but when asked as a member of the Ethics Committee to comment about a possible ethics case, I said that while it is unfortunate that Senator Soto's remarks offended a lot of women, quote-unquote na ano ka lang, per se, is not offensive language, which is the one prohibited in the Senate rules. Iniisip ko at the time, i-expel o isususpend ko ang isang senador dahil lang doon? Hindi ko minamaliit yung pagka-offend ng mga kababaihan. Pero mas mabigat sa akin yung mandato ng taong bayan na naghalal sa kanya. Kahit censure o reprimand, hindi ko magawa kasi may liwanag na sa rules. Bukod pa ron, nakakita na ako ng mas maaanghang pangpalitan ng salita na napalagpas naman. Ngayon, lawyering at committee de absuelto lang na si Senator Gordon lang ang na-offend, ipapa-expel, ipapa-suspend, or even ire-reprimand ako? Para hindi naman yata tama yan. The rules were designed to set a standard that could be applied to everyone with no ambiguity, wherein offensive language is not relative to the sensitivity of feelings of each individual senator. Hindi ito issue ng majority or minority. Para sa lahat ito, dahil the precedent we set now could be applied to you pag nasa minority ka na at pwede ka na rin pagkaisahan. Sana wag tayong ganun. At any rate, I fully trust the wisdom and judgment of my colleagues. Kilala nila ako. Alam na mga kasama natin dito na passionate lang ako or emotionally transparent ako sa mga issues na malapit sa aking puso. Gaya nyo, meron din akong ipinaglalaban. Maaring minsan magkatunggali tayo sa mga issues, pero alam nyo na sa labas ng politika, hindi ako masamang tao at wala akong masamang hangarin. Maaaring mabigat ako nakaaway sa mga tiwali, pero alam nyo na tunay ako makipagkaibigan. Maayos at diretso ako kausap at tapat ako na kaalyado na handang makipaglaban para sa inyo. Kilala ko rin ang mga pinagkakautangan ko ng loob at tinatanaw ko yang mga yan hanggang nasa tama. Alam nyo rin na hindi ako marunong mambuli. Marunong lang ako tumayo laban sa mga bully paminsan-minsan. Lastly, maaring magkakahiwalay man tayo ngayon sa pananaw sa politika, pero malay nyo, sa malapit na hinaharap, baka magkakasama rin tayo. At this point, Mr. President, I'll be stepping down as a member of the Ethics Committee so as not to influence the case against me. At the proper time, the minority leader, Senator Trillanes, would designate my replacement. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Mr. President, Senator Manny Pacquiao wishes to take the floor and ask Senator Trillanes a few questions.
Senator Pacquiao is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. If the gentleman from Bicol, he has some questions.
Yes, please, Mr. President.
Mr. President, about this shipment of shabu investigation and Bureau of Customs, we are investigating the shipment of shabu, not the Tara issue. Do you aware that aware po ba kayo na si Taguba, sinabi kasi niya na after the transaction, yung Tara-Tara issue, Tara-Tara issue is mula pa noon yan, na ilang dekada na naririnig natin yung mga Tara-Tara issue dyan sa Bureau of Customs. Sinabi ni Taguba na wala ng connection yung shipment nung yung shabu, yung 604 kilos na shabu na nakalusot sa Bureau of Customs, wala ng connection ang Davao Group doon na sinasabi na hearsay ni Taguba. Ano po ang tingin niyo rito at paniniwala ninyo doon sa sinabi ni Taguba?
Mr. President, well, precisely that's why I had to show the video so that the other senators would be enlightened about what went down during that committee hearing. And it was clearly mentioned by Mr. Taguba that when I asked him if Tita Nani is part of the Davao Group, he said yes. So I asked him again, when did Tita Nani disengage? He said until the end or when the controversy broke. So from January, when he disengaged Tita Nani and the Davao Group, until the controversy broke into the consciousness of the public, the Davao Group was there. So, therefore, the Davao Group is clearly involved in the shabu shipment, Mr. President.
No, maliwanag po yan na nandito ako mismo, narinig ko sa Mr. President sa bunganga ni Taguba na sabi niya na wala ng kinalaman ang Davao Group o kung ano man yon doon sa shabu na nakalusot na 600 more than 600 kilos na shabu na nakalusot sa Bureau of Customs. Wala ng connection ang alleged Mr. President na Davao Group. Mr. President, gusto lang tapusin yung tanong ko. Ano ang gusto mong palabasin dito na investigation? We are investigating also the Tara issue or we are investigating the shabu shipment?
Actually, Mr. President, I filed another resolution in relation to the Tara system as exposed by Senator Lacson. And I believe they are interrelated. So same way that during the subcommittee hearings against the former Vice President then, when we were questioned about the coverage of the hearings and we were expanding beyond what was stated in the resolution, I filed another resolution that covered everything. So we didn't need to terminate one hearing and start the next. We just continued it since it was interrelated. So that was the purpose of the resolution that I filed. And clearly, as I mentioned, when I asked Mr. Taguba, the Davao Group was involved not only in the Tara system, but in the drug shipment. So, that's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just want to ask if the gentleman from Bicol aware of this issue, name dropping. Name dropping, kahit ako nagamit yung pangalan ko, ginagamit din na name dropping kahit hindi ko alam. At itong si aware po ba Mr. President, kayo na itong si Taguba na lagi niyang sinasabi na yun po ang sabi na Paulo Duterte, pero hearsay lang po yung naririnig niya. So, gusto ko po kayong tanungin kung naniniwala po ba kayo sa hearsay.
Naniniwala po tayo dyan na nangyayari po yan if the gentleman from Sarangani and General Santos is referring to that phenomenon of name-dropping, which is high-profile personalities. So it happens, and acknowledge that. But in the case of Mr. Tagupa, if you would review the transcript, I asked him what made him certain about the Davao Group as being backed by Mr. Pulong Duterte. His response was because they make things happen. So when his shipments were alerted and the Davao Group would intervene, then lo and behold, the alert would be lifted and his shipments would be released. So, and Mr. Taguba was referred to the Davao Group by somebody he trusted. And that's why he trusted the credibility of this group enough that he parted ways with 8 million pesos. So, and after giving 8 million pesos, his shipments were released and they were not alerted at all for the next few months. So, the proof of the involvement of influential people was validated by the actual release and the facilitation of the release of the other shipments, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. But my next question is about what happened in the hearing of this investigation. Hindi niyo po ba sinabi niyo po ba na committee de absuelto? Am I correct po?
Dalawa doon sa nakita natin doon sa hearing. Noong una, after nag-suspend yung hearing, sinabi ko, nagiging committee de absuelto na ang Blue Ribbon Committee. Nakuha ng national TV yon, but as far as the records are concerned, wala yon. So, kaya nga in-stress ko na statements made habang suspended or adjourned ay hindi covered. Kunyari mamaya mag-adjourn si Senate President dito, mag-alisan na yung mga tao at buksan ko yung mic dito, kahit na ano pang gawin ko, hindi yan pwedeng i-cover dun sa Senate rules natin na unparliamentary acts.
I understand that, Mr. President, but when we watched the video, nag-resume na si chairman, ang chairperson, and then you say it again.
Yes.
Binanggit niyo ulit na committee de absuelto.
Okay.
Yes, this is your word. Yes, nagiging committee de absuelto na itong
No. Mr. President, the gentleman is confused because when the session was resumed, the chairman, Senator Gordon, said clearly, it's on the record, committee de absuelto. He was the first one who mentioned it on the record. Then I just said, yes, nagiging committee de absuelto. I basically affirmed yung
Then,
sinabi niya. So,
ye-
as far as the Senate, the records are concerned, he was the one who said it.
No,
First.
you're confirming it that you said it.
No. The records, do you want us to review the video, Mr. President? Hindi na. Well, nakalagay doon, once the session is resumed, Senator Gordon went to the mic and said, it's on the record, committee de absuelto. Then I said, yes, nagiging committee de absuelto. So, what can you take out of that? It was Senator Gordon who actually said, committee de absuelto. And I was agreeing with him, rather.
Mr. President, yung pagsabi ng committee de absuelto, hindi po ba yan pagsira ng credibility ng committee?
Well, as I mentioned, Mr. President, committee de absuelto per se is not offensive language. I can approach the audience here and tell it to their face, committee de absuelto, and they'll just be puzzled. Why am I saying that? So it means it's not an offensive language. And I mentioned the importance of saying things on record and outside, meaning in the media, I went to the extreme. When Senator Cayetano openly said to then Senator Noynoy Aquino, abnormal si Noynoy Aquino. That's way more offensive than committee de absuelto, Mr. President.
My next question, Mr. President, I would like to ask, the committee is part of the Senate, hindi po ba?
Yes, Mr. President.
So when you say offensive words in the committee, you are not only hindi ka lang nagsasabi sa isang kasama, kundi sa buong kasamahan mo.
I totally agree, Mr. President.
Yes, and then, Mr. President, I want to ask the gentleman from Bicol if he say offensive words, kung nakapagsabi ba siya ng offensive words on that hearing.
As the audience, everyone have seen the video, and I can categorically say, wala. I did not utter a single offensive word during that hearing, Mr. President.
Is pathetic words is not offensive, Mr. President?
Mr. President, that word is an adjective. And we're not limited to the use of words found in the dictionary, Mr. President, unless and until they fall under that category of offensive language, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my colleagues from Bicol.
Maraming salamat din, Mr. President, sa ating kasamahan from General Santos and Sarangani.
Mr. President,
Mr. President.
Senator Zubiri.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Zubiri is recognized.
Mr. President, not to interpolate my good gentleman from Bicol, but
Yes.
basically, I'm not a lawyer, although I used to be a majority floor leader. And I'd like to read for the record, or on the record rather, Rule 34 of our rules. Under Rule 34 on Parliamentary Acts and Language, Section 93, and I quote, "Acts and language which offend the senator or any public institution shall be deemed unparliamentary." Section 94, no senator under any circumstances, meaning in and out of the session floor, in and out of a committee. Let me repeat, no senator under any circumstances shall use offensive or improper language against another senator or any public institution. Now, and I don't want to debate with my good colleague here because mine is just, there's already been an ethics case filed. Since there's already an ethics case filed, let us listen to the facts of both sides. Let Senator Gordon present his case. Let Senator Trillanes, of course, defend this case. And we can make a decision thereafter. There's a process in the Committee on Ethics. And I think we should just move forward to that and wait for that process to continue, Mr. President. Thank you very much to
Thank you.
the gentleman.
I totally agree, Mr. President. Let me just respond to that section read into the records by Senator Zubiri. The title in that same book that he read, it says unparliamentary acts. When you say unparliamentary, you are referring to while the Senate is in session or during a committee hearing. And the second one, I think that's section 94? 94. In the phrase, under any circumstances, then he mentioned whether inside or outside, wala po yun. Walang nakalagay na ganon dun sa ating Senate rules. Under any circumstances, while the Senate is in session, because ang nire-refer is parliamentary acts. So, I believe the rules are quite clear. Hindi pwedeng yung nasa labas ng session. When we say parliamentary, we're referring to while the Senate is in session or during the committee hearings, Mr. President.
May we have a final word on this because, Mr. President, this debate should be done in the Committee on Ethics, not
I
in the
agree.
plenary
That's what I was
session.
going to say, Mr. President.
So, go ahead.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Majority Leader. You put words into my mouth.
I'm
Actually, I was going to say exactly the same thing. We will decide on the Committee on Ethics how this will be interpreted.
That's correct.
And it's a collegial body,
That's
so we
correct.
will make a decision one way or the other, and we will vote upon it, and the vote will be final. Thank you, Mr. President.
In that case, Mr. President, the privileged speech and the ensuing debate or interpellation, I move that we refer to the Committee on Ethics.
Okay. Before I act on the motion, I want to emphasize that the speech of Senator Trillanes is a good illustration of the use of video clipping. We have a new rule, Resolution number 21, which limits the use of videos and other films, video clips, multimedia to 30 minutes, and he consumed 27 minutes. So the new rule was not violated, but we are monitoring the length of time of the video clips and other footages that is incorporated in a speech. So
Thank you for reminding the members, Mr. President, because precisely I formulated and I presented that particular new rule into the rules because we might just have a filibuster and somebody can play the Ten
That's correct.
Commandments, the movie Ten Commandments.
We were monitoring two time limits for video
Yes.
clips, 30 minutes, and for the entire privileged speech, 1 hour. Okay, so
Yes.
any objection to the motion to refer the speech to the Ethics Committee? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Senator Gordon, Mr.
Senator
President.
Gordon is recognized.
Mr. President, I'm glad that the majority floor leader, in his wisdom, has said that it should be referred to the committee because that's where it belongs. My point here lang is I'm not going to reply to it. I will not even dignify it because the proper venue will be in the committee. I just would like to take umbrage at the fact that this representation has been a volunteer of the Red Cross for almost 50 years since I graduated from college, and I followed the footsteps of my mother in the Red Cross. I've seen many events in my life where we've been in earthquakes, we've seen suffering, we've been in floods, volcanic eruptions, shipwrecks. We've been everywhere, even abroad, Mr. President. And this representation was elected chairman of the Philippine Red Cross. I am a volunteer, Mr. President. I do not get any salary or allowances from the Philippine Red Cross. I use my time efficiently, and when I'm senator, I try to make use of my time, not in idle, occupations. I think Senator Subiri and Senator Gatchalian will bear me out. All my moments are spent trying to fashion out a better service for the Red Cross, especially these days when we have problems in Malawi. And that is why I would like to put it on record here that I'm also a governor of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. That is an honor that I feel very, very proud of. And I've been awarded by the Japanese Red Cross and by the Philippine Red Cross and by the Philippine Volunteer Movement, all these things. I just appeal to any senator in the hall to be very, very careful. You can hurt me, but do not hurt the movement. We try very hard to make sure na ang Red Cross ay hindi masasaktan kahit na kailan. Mr. President, I once appeared on a television commercial in Procter & Gamble, of which was my first job. I was asking money from the Procter & Gamble people to provide us with a contribution because at that time we were having shortages in money. At that time it was not in the budget of the Procter & Gamble people to provide resources. I introduced Safeguard into the country as a Procter & Gamble brand man. And so I asked them, are you making any initiative with Safeguard? And they said yes. So I volunteered and I said, why don't you make me the pitch man? I will push Safeguard and we can talk about it later, what if you are going to give anything. Mr. President, I appeared in that commercial. And when it was done, the Procter & Gamble folks called me and gave me 12 million pesos in the name of Attorney Richard Gordon. And I returned that check, Mr. President. And I said, please replace the check in favor of the Philippine Red Cross, because that's where it should belong. I'm not saying that to say I'm a martyr or I'm trying to get a pat in the back. I try not to do that. Every day people help. I forget whom I help. I've helped friends and enemies. But to malign the Red Cross in this hall, Mr. President, and that is always been the problem of certain individuals, particularly the gentleman who gave the privileged speech. He thinks that he does his job by making sure that his conclusions are in his mind, and when he asks questions, he thinks that he's already proven his point. That's why he's having a hard time trying to understand what hearsay is. You can imagine if we accept all the hearsay, we will be investigating forever and be chasing after shadows, Mr. President. And I understand that because he's a lawyer. He never made it to the University of the Philippines as a law school graduate. It's hard to make it there. He never made it to any college of law. It's hard to be a lawyer, Mr. President, because there are technical terms. And I can appreciate the fact that it is a convenient excuse, perhaps, to hide behind ignorance and sometimes even stupidity to be able to protect oneself. And so, Mr. President, I don't want to go any further. I think the case has been brought. Far be it from my mind to hurt anybody here. Again, when I filed that ethics complaint, I filed it to protect the Senate, to protect the Blue Ribbon Committee, the dignity of the Blue Ribbon Committee. I would not want it seen later on that nobody would want to come because we keep asking them questions that are not allowed. I would not want them not to come because names have been mentioned here, and I'm not going to mention it again. I just want to end here. It is in protection of the dignity of the Senate and my own self that I'm a senator, and I'm proud to be a senator, and I try my darndest best every day to work more than the normal hours. You can ask the security here, my people are the last people to get out every night because we work long hours. Even the Blue Ribbon Committee, they work long and hard every time we prepare. We are not gunslingers, Mr. President, that you call to a committee and then shoot somebody right away, kill his reputation. We go every step. We try to find out and trace and try to make a connection so that when we ask questions, they get caught. That is why we caught the two Chinese. We detained them and we got information from them. That is why cases are being filed already. That is why Mr. Taguba was forced to make the TARA. You will recall we even went there, and when he said he was going to say it, I remember Senator Angara said, sabihin mo na lang, and with all due respect, Senator Angara said, no, let him write it. I want to be sure he wrote it. We take great pains to be careful, Mr. President. We deal with reputations here. The gentleman who just spoke has a reputation to protect, and we respected him. I respect him. Even now, as a senator, I respect him. I'm not going to go down to the level of muckraking. I'm not going to wrestle with a pig. That was what my mother used to tell me. Huwag kang makipagbuno sa baboy. Ang baboy mahilig sa putik. Pag nakipagbuno ka sa baboy, mapuputikin ka. Kahit na ayaw mo sa gusto mo. I've never done that with any politician in my life, Mr. President. It's easy to do that. You're tempted to do that. But we will not, because this is the Senate of the Republic of the Philippines. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes when we act outside, just this afternoon I was having lunch with my schoolmates. And some of them, as they want to do, being senior or graying men, they were showing a picture of a lewd picture. And they were giving it to me, and I said, I don't want to touch it. I'm a senator, and I don't want to touch it because baka may makakita sa akin, masabi pa na nakikisama ako dyan sa mga kalokohan na yan, na hindi na alam ko naman kalokohan lang natin, gym locker talk if you like, but I didn't do that. So, Mr. President, I would like to request the Senate to extract the words out, to expunge the words Philippine Red Cross. He can accuse me of corruption. That is his privilege. But do not drag the Red Cross, especially when there is no proof of that. Oh, I know he's been looking for material in the Red Cross. We have our own enemies in the Red Cross, Mr. President. But I would like to expunge that in the record, if I may. If the Senate will. If he wants to file charges against me, he may do so. It's a free country. I'm ready to answer that. On that note, Mr. President, that is my humble request. Thank you very much.
Majority Leader, what is the, is there a pending motion there?
No, there is no motion. It is a request, Mr. President. I move that, this is my motion. I move that the request be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Okay.
We'll study the
Yes.
the
Because
possibility of expunging.
We need to go over the
Yes.
transcript, yes. That's
I
right.
think, Mr. President,
Yes,
may I-
before I process.
I believe the request is really a motion to strike off the record the word Red Cross. What the
Yes.
good gentleman from Subic is saying, that he's not objecting that he be called corrupt. Wag lang ilagay yung pangalan na Red Cross.
Is the motion of the Majority Leader acceptable to Senator Gordon that the motion be referred to the Committee on Rules so that the transcript will be reviewed?
It seems a very simple request, and I'm not an unreasonable man. If we want to complicate the matter, we can refer it to the Committee on Rules. But I do mind, and I'm sure Senator Zubiri, who's in the Red Cross, and Senator Gatchalian, who's in the
Yes.
Red Cross as governors, will mind, but I will leave it
Yes,
to the best judgment.
the request is, revolves around the mention of Red Cross. Okay, that's the, any
Philippine
objection
Red
to
Cross.
the motion of the Majority Leader? Senator Trillanes?
Mr. President, I object to that motion precisely because I will be, the motion of Senator Gordon.
There is no
Mr.
motion, Mr. President. It is a request. He said it is a humble, we can look at the journal. He
I will
said
submit to the
It's a humble request
Majority Leader.
that we expunge the mention of Red Cross. I said,
Right.
my motion is
Yes.
now to refer it to the Committee on Rules so that they can
Yes.
review what was said.
The pending motion is referral to Committee on Rules. Are you objecting, Senator Trillanes? No. Is there any objection? Hearing none?
Just one more final point, Mr. President. I've always respected the Philippine Military Academy. And one raw mistake, I will not charge the Philippine Military Academy. That's the whole point.
Okay, that's not an objection. Hearing none, the motion of the Majority Leader is approved.
Mr. President, there are a number of bills on the agenda, but the climate does not, the environment does not feel good. So I move to adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, September 6, 2017.
Any objection? Okay, there being none, session is adjourned until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Wednesday, September 6, 2017. regular session of